A single Quattro can cover a significant size conference room and ranges of up to 20 feet. In some cases, this is not enough. You can connect up to 15 Quattro units in a daisy chain and cover much larger settings. When Quattro units are chained, all the microphones in the chain will participate in the beam forming process, picking up the best audio available amongst them. So if, for example, 5 units are connected, 20 microphones are actually being utilized in an extended beam forming scheme. In addition, the loudspeakers are duplicated so that audio is transmitted through all the Quattro units at the same time. So how is the daisy chain done? Very simply, the units are interconnected with the daisy chain cable that is supplied with each unit. This cable is a standard Ethernet cable, but for ease of use, it has 90-degree connectors on each end. Each of the units should also be connected to a power source. The Quattro also offers a powering scheme that will power all the units through the daisy chain cables. Let's first demonstrate connecting 2 units in a basic configuration. Designate the master Quattro in this chain. This unit should have the proper communication interface. For example, if you use a telephone line, unit number 1, or the master, will be a telephone unit. Use the daisy chain cable provided with each unit to connect between units. Plug the cable to the down connector underneath the first unit. Then connect the cable to unit number 2's up connector. Continue the process to connect the rest of the chain as needed. Now that the units are chained, connect unit number 1 to the communication line. Unit number 1 does not need any additional connection, and if not powered through the network or the USB, it has its own battery. Make sure the battery level is sufficient. Connect unit number 2 to a power source using the AC/DC power adapter. Continue doing the same for the rest of the units in the chain. You can power on the chain from any of the units. You can also control the volume settings and the mute function from any of the units. Now, how do we use the central power scheme? This option requires that you have a Phoenix Audio 48-volt power adapter. All the units participating in the chain also need to have an interface card to support it. If your Quattro has any communication interface like the telephone or smartphone, it already supports this option. If it does not, it has to have a powered chain card called the 304. If you look at your Quattro connectors, you should be able to locate a small DC connector between the USB and the 3.5 millimeter connector. If your unit does not have such a connector, it does not support the power chain option. If it does, then you're good to go. All the models outside of the MT301 support this function. In a similar way to what we demonstrated before, designate the first Quattro in the chain. Use the daisy chain cable provided with each unit to connect between units as we just did. Since we're using a central power scheme, we don't need to have all the units connected to their own DC power supply. Now, connect the 48-volt power supply to unit number 1. This power source will power all the units in the chain. If your chain has more than 8 units, you will have to connect an additional power source to unit number 9. 2 last notes for consideration. First, the number of units you should plan on using depends on the type and condition of your room. A quiet room with treated surfaces will require less units than a noisy or reverberant room. General rule of thumb, make sure that each of the participants will not be more than 10 to 15 feet away from a unit to obtain good results. Second note, the order of units in this chain has no significance to the way it will perform.